Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jack Farmer. He's Andy Rossi, and this is the Evolution of Movies show. It's the last one of the year, season 2. That's a wrap. How you feeling, Andy?
I'm feeling great. Look at us. We did it.
2 guys doing 2 seasons of a show.
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
I feel like it's an accomplishment. This year we did like 10 more shows too or something, right?
Yeah, it was a bigger season. And you know what? Just a tease. We got some big things for season 3 coming up, but you got to wait till season 3 for that. We're not done yet here.
No.
We got a case to solve, Andy.
Oh, we do.
We do. The case of the missing guest host. We don't have one. It's just us this time around. We started this season, Flash Gordon, just me and you. Mm-hmm. And we're going to end it the same way. Just me and you. 2 pals, 2 buddies.
We made it.
We're going to, let's knuckle bump.
There it is.
There we go. Okay, so this is the Evolution of Movie show. If you haven't turned it off already, where what we do is we watch a movie and we talk about it book club style, but we call it the Evolution of Movies because we always pick a movie that came out 1 year after the last movie we watched. So we started in 1980, went to 1981, 1982. Now we're all the way up to 2022. That's this year. It's a time where movie theaters were going nuts, I tell you. We got Top Gun Maverick.
Oof.
Everything, everywhere, all at once. And of course, Morbius. But we aren't talking about any of those. We're talking about Knives Out, Glass Onion, a movie IMDb describes as famed Southern detective Benoit Blanc travels to Greece for his latest case. Andy, that's about as simple of a synopsis.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can't get Morbius out of my head. Morbius was this year. It seems so long ago.
That was this year.
Wow. I still haven't seen it.
Yeah. I know what I'm picking for this year. Next year. But had you seen Glass Onion before? And what were your thoughts going into it this time around?
I have not seen it. No. So this was my first time. I watched it. I wanted to watch it at the theater, but I looked up showtimes and it's no longer in theaters. It's only on Netflix. So I caught it last night.
Yeah, I loved Knives Out. I loved the first one. It was actually the last movie I saw in theater before everything shut down. So
good for you.
It was actually a kind of a full circle moment to see the sequel. You know, and especially when we'll talk about kind of how they start this movie. But I loved Knives Out. Absolutely just blew me away. It was one of those movies I left going, everyone needs to see this. Super fun. So I was super excited to see this one.
And the reason I said good for you for having that as your pandemic before the pandemic, mine was the Impractical Jokers movie. And I was like so furious that I'm like, what if theaters never open again? My last movie ever in a theater is the Impractical Jokers movie.
Even the Impractical Jokers didn't see the Impractical Jokers movie.
They're like, we're good. We made it. Wasn't that great?
Yeah. But I will say, I do kind of wish I saw this one first and then the other Knives Out. I feel like I liked Knives Out 1 more than Knives Out 2. But let me know your overall thoughts before we dive into it piece by piece. And of course, let's still guess the Rotten Tomatoes. Let's see if you can guess the Rotten Tomatoes.
See if you know if I'm right or wrong.
Yeah.
You're right. This first one, the Knives Out, was great. There was another movie that came out right, I think before Knives Out, called Ready or Not. I don't know if you ever saw that, but kind of had like a similar vibe where it was just like almost like a Clue kind of murder mystery vibe. I really like that movie too. But Knives Out was great. This one was a lot of fun. Actually, when I was just reviewing my notes just now, I started realizing I liked it more than I thought I did as I was like reading through it and kind of recapping what happened. So I have a feeling my second viewing, I'll probably like it even more. I think critics really like this movie. I love Rian Johnson. If you haven't seen Brick, that's an amazing movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Looper, he's got a lot of good ones. Let's say, man, I actually have no idea what critics said, but I just know that they probably liked it. I'm gonna go. I actually have no idea. I'm gonna go like 84, 85. I'll go 85. Final answer. I think it was good, but not
85.
90s.
Final answer. If you were a guest and you had to pick, would you say the safe bet is that it's higher or safe bet that it's lower than that?
Man, I think if I were a guest, I would just want to go big or go home, right? So I'd probably say higher.
And you would be right. Rotten Tomatoes has it
Oh,
at 94%.
oh,
So
94. Okay.
94, that's a pretty high.
High ones. That's around Pig.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd put it at 94. I'm gonna be honest with
Mm-mm.
you. I thought it was a good movie. Again, I enjoyed it
Yeah.
completely.
I thought it was like a B plus, a good
Yeah,
B plus movie. A
it was kind of
minus.
movie if you watched it, if you picked it to watch with people and you watched, you'd be like, okay, good. I got a good one.
Yeah.
I
I
didn't get a
didn't pick
bad one.
Identity Thief.
I didn't pick Identity Thief. I didn't pick Kroll. I picked something that I'm proud of.
Kroll was fun to watch though. It's like
Kroll,
this. I would
Kroll's
love to watch it again.
absolutely fun to watch.
Yeah.
Stupid, but it was fun to watch.
Yeah.
So I liked it. I mean, yeah, I don't know. We'll talk about it. There's certain things. I'll tell you why as we go through. I'll kind of explain the things that I wasn't a super fan of, but again, overall, I like the movie. Before we get into it, this is the last episode of the season, so hit us with the like, comment, share, subscribes. Leave a comment as well with any movies you'd like to see us review in 2023. Again, we do one a year, so one for each year. So pick whatever you want. And let us know. We might pick it and we might review it for you. And if you are one of the ones that helped us decide to pick it, I'll make sure to shout you out on that episode. So do that. And again, like, comment, share, subscribe.
And if you want to hear us do Flash Gordon again, that's cool.
Yeah, we just do nothing but Flash Gordon all year. Every week we'll just get together and reminisce about Flash.
It would be fun to see people's reaction to watching it or Kroll for the first time.
Yeah, I
wish I could have that back.
Yeah, you only get once though. Yeah. So let's talk about this movie. In 2020, a group of people receive a strange box from super rich Miles Braun, a Senate candidate named Claire, a scientist named Lionel, a fashionista and her assistant Birdie and Peg, as well as YouTuber Duke and his girlfriend Whiskey. They work together to solve the puzzles of the box and get an invite to Miles's private island. Also, Andy and Benoit get a box. Andy, explain to me the boobification of America.
What does that mean? The boobification?
That was what Duke was saying in his video.
Really? So funny. I love that his name's Duke, by the way. Batista kind of looks like a Duke.
Yeah.
Kind of like a doofus name.
I like how I've always asked the characters and the world they live in for 2 seasons now, and I break it up to ask about the boobification.
And I didn't even catch it.
So, but let's go to it. Let's talk about this. We obviously know the premise. It's a murder mystery, and they're trying to tell us all the characters that are going to play a part. Tell us about them.
I really like the way they did it, actually, because they introduce you to all the characters, and I was just kind of, I didn't look up too much of this movie ahead of time because I wanted to be surprised. So I was like, oh, wow, Kate Hudson's in this. And later we'll see some other cameos, but, Catherine Hahn's in it.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people I wasn't expecting to be in it are in it, which was great. And I think they did a really good job of, I like all the characters and seeing like their backstories ahead of time. I feel like there's some movies that'll have like a murder mystery where they don't give you kind of a little bit of backstory, and each character had a backstory. And I couldn't figure out exactly why they were all on the phone with each other, but later we kind of figure out how they're all connected. So it's kind of fun to be like, okay, there's all these people that are connected somehow. And is this when we get the box? Everybody's gotten the box at this point.
Yep, everyone has the box, and they're working together to solve it, including Yo-Yo Ma.
Oh yeah. That another cameo, which was great. I love the way Andy opens the box too. I thought that was hilarious because you saw all these people working together to do it, and then because that would be me. I'd be like, I can't figure out these freaking riddles. I'm just going to use this hammer or whatever she uses to bust it open.
Yeah, no, that was fun because what I liked about this too is they're all so different, these characters, but because of who they are, you immediately get an understanding of who the character is. If I tell you Batista is a YouTuber, you immediately get it. Like, you get exactly who his character is, what he's going to be like when he interacts with everybody. One of them's a politician. You immediately get kind of an idea of where her head is going to be at in this movie.
remembered the part you're talking about. He's talking about boobs the whole time, and
Yeah.
then she says, "I like my boobs," and
Sorry, feminists.
yeah, yeah, and then his mom in there is hysterical. I wish she
Yeah.
was in it more.
Yeah, she would have been. I was kind of bummed out she didn't make it to the island. Actually, I
Yeah,
really liked her as well.
she seemed to be on top of it. Like she probably would have solved the crime pretty quickly.
Well, she solved half the puzzle box.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. If she would went to the island, she would have. Well, she was smart, as we'll find out later. The
The-
characters in this aren't all that bright.
right, right. I do want to talk to you about the idea of doing this during COVID. While this was happening, it's interesting. I don't know how much this was actually filmed in like 2020 or during COVID, and so I don't know how much they were trying to, I guess, get past some of that. But this was the first movie or show that I can think of, and maybe I'm just wrong about this, where COVID was a part of the movie, but it was not the premise of the movie, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
they've done movies where like it's all about COVID,
Yeah,
or
like
COVID's
Grey's Anatomy had a whole season with COVID stuff.
yeah, where
Yeah,
this just happened to be like it just happened to be there. Like,
yeah,
and I thought that was an interesting way to play it.
yeah, and they touched on it well. And again, like these characters are kind of doofuses, so I really enjoyed the fact that Kate Hudson's character Birdie, her mask isn't even doing anything. Did
Right.
you notice that? Like hers was like a see-through mask, and later she's like, "I'm tired of wearing those masks." I'm like,
Right.
"Yours wasn't even doing anything." And it kind of like a fun character thing because we see Daniel Craig's Benoit character. He's
Mhm.
got like a regular kind of dorky mask, what most of us were wearing, and
Yeah.
everybody's mask was like slightly different. So, and him in the bathtub, more cameos. Um,
Yeah.
what's her name from Murder She Wrote? Angela Lansbury is
Right.
in there, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Which ironically, what I liked about Angela Lansbury being in there is another crime solving person.
Yeah,
I thought that was a fun little nod there. Um, I actually thought the COVID was going to be a bigger part of this. I thought the masks were going to be something that would allow people to cover their face and get away
Mm,
with murder. I thought it was going to be a big thing that played throughout.
mm,
But of course, it really didn't. It kind of stopped after the beginning. But
which was great. Yeah,
the first thing they kind of bugged me. This didn't really like ruin the movie for me at this point, but something I didn't like how much of that box was CGI.
mm,
Because there's something about murder mysteries where I feel like once you start doing too much CGI, like I'm supposed to feel like I understand what's going on so I can try to solve the case.
yeah,
And when I see the CGI, I'm like, oh, you're kind of using trickery that makes it impossible for me to solve it, if that makes sense.
yeah,
It's like when someone uses magic in a movie, like, oh, well, I can't relate to that.
yeah.
So, you know,
I
it was a small thing, but I kind of I wish it was a real box. I wish they did something to make that, even if it was kind of faked, but with real materials, if that makes sense.
Yeah, especially once we learn more about great name Miles Braun. Once we learn
Yeah.
a bit more about him, it would have made more sense to have just like a box that. And I thought was funny now that I've watched the movie in the beginning. I was kind of like, oh, this box is very tough to solve. Like it takes all these people to figure out. They must be like really into like murder mystery stuff and they're great with riddles. But once Andy's character smashes it, I was like, oh, this box isn't that tough to solve. Like you just bust it open and there's your little thing. So that was
Yeah.
kind of a nice way to kind of say like, oh, maybe these people aren't like murder mystery aficionados. Maybe they're just a bunch
Right.
of doofuses.
But I like how it immediately tells you that Andy is not part of his group. And
Mhm.
there's something like because they all work together and they're all friends and she's by herself. And you're
Yeah.
like, it immediately lets you wonder what's the deal? Like what's going on here? What's her story? And that
Mhm.
immediately made me interested in her.
Yeah.
But we continue on and everyone gathers in Greece and gets a COVID shot in their throat as more about the cast of characters is learned. Andy was ripped off by the super rich Miles, and Miles didn't actually invite Benoit. They assume someone must have reset one of the boxes and sent it to Benoit, but since Benoit is here, why not try to solve the mystery?
Yeah.
By the pool, we learn more about the relationship with each other, and they all call themselves disruptors. They break systems, they cross lines, and Andy adds that they're all bankrolled by Miles.
Mm.
This is where Peg also begs Miles to not make Birdie read a statement. That is
Yeah.
clearly not good. But I think the thing I want you to explain the most is I want you to walk me through the scene where Duke is having sex with, or Duke is watching Miles have sex with Whiskey.
Very confusing. Yeah, I still don't quite understand it, where his head was at with all this. But at this time, I was noticing that Whiskey was very frisky with Miles Braun, and I'm like, Batista, you're a monster. Kill Edward Norton, you know?
Right.
But I don't know, I was thinking, I'm like, maybe it was like fetish. He's like, oh yeah, I like to watch.
Well, it was very again, what I like about this is we know someone's going to get murdered, and they're leaving a lot of breadcrumbs, a good trail of breadcrumbs to show us why many of them would want to kill somebody. And right off the bat, we're seeing Peg doesn't want Miles to make Birdie do something. So you think, well, maybe Peg's going to kill somebody. You see Duke watching Miles have sex with his girlfriend. Like, well, Duke may want to kill somebody. And you're just sort of learning more and more. Of course, Andy may want to kill somebody at this point, and you're just seeing there's so many different things that why someone would hate someone else, and you're creating tension. I thought really, really well here.
What about the part though where suddenly Ethan Hawke is there?
Yes,
with his slick back hair shooting people in the throat. I thought that was great. I'm like, Ethan Hawke's in this?
I don't know how true this is. I didn't fact check. I just saw it frivolously on Twitter, so take it for nothing. But I heard he was just nearby filming like Moon Knight or something. And he stopped by and like, let's put you in the movie.
That's
Al.
great.
He said, okay. Because, that was the only thing he did. I thought it was interesting that, speaking of the throat shots, like, that's why I'm wondering where that we were at in COVID. Like, did they just have to find a way to sort of right around COVID because they didn't understand where it was going at the time? Or because that also didn't come up again.
Yeah, that's true. I think, who knows where I mean, I feel like back during that time, I can't even remember back, like, I'm like, there was a vaccine and then we had the mask and like, there's a lot of stuff going on. So I'm sure when he was writing this was kind of like, went through the whole thing. Like, we were probably on lockdown and then we were probably had some vaccine. So I'm sure he went back and changed stuff around. But I just felt like it was like the perfect way to show our society, because if you're like super rich, like Miles Braun, you probably have some kind of vaccine, which looking back, it probably wasn't. It was probably just like a shot of, I don't know.
It's like airborne. They just shot airborne in their mouth.
Yeah.
But you're right, because that is kind of, and that's kind of the way Miles is too. And throughout this movie, you see he kind of like can just buy his way through things. One of the things I really enjoyed is how they play into tropes in this whole movie, and with Knives Out in general, but in this movie for sure. The anonymous invite that someone gets, the big gathering at dinner, and all this stuff. It's so cliche, but they lean into it in a way that makes you really enjoy it, as opposed to it being like, oh, okay, this is silly. I liked it. How do you feel about them leaning into the tropes?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I wasn't expecting Benoit to not be invited. And Edward Norton is just such a good actor. He plays this character so well, because I kept thinking that he had all these like marionettes basically. So I thought he was telling Benoit that he wasn't invited when he actually was. I like really thought he was like this kind of diabolical, like super smart guy that had everything kind of handled. However, not so much the case, but it was a good, I really like the way they kind of like touched on all that kind of stuff, all the stereotypes.
A few other things that came up during this time was Birdie and Miles apparently almost had a thing. That again, maybe it was a red herring in this, but giving us another reason for Birdie to maybe be jealous that Whiskey is singing along with Miles now and those kind of things. So again, you think maybe that's where the murder will come down.
Yeah.
And Batista with his gun, hilarious, by the way.
Yeah, is that when he's are we in the pool yet, or is that later?
That's the scene where he's in the pool.
Yeah.
And he just shoots it and he sticks it right down in his crotch.
I was kind of thinking, I don't know enough about guns, but I'm like, do guns work that well? Like once they've been soaking wet? I guess so.
I don't know. I don't
His
know.
gun does.
His gun does.
Yeah.
This is where, though, again, I feel like there's a ton of CGI in this movie. And again, it kind of took me out of it a little bit. Like the walking dog, the mechanical dog carrying the luggage. It was kind of funny. But then like the whole building and stuff like that, I guess for mysteries like this, I would rather it was just more real. Because again, the more fake it is, I don't know, it kind of took me out. I'm trying to solve it. It felt like there was too much like, that's not real, so I can't analyze it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me. I don't know. How did you feel with the CGI?
I agree with you, but at the same time, this Willy Wonka type character of Miles Braun, I mean, he's like Willy Wonka, Elon Musk, Zuckerberg. I don't know. He's like all those guys in one. So I was kind of thinking a guy like that would have that weird dog carrying the luggage. He probably would have like some weird technology to show CGI. You know, I don't know. I kind of bought it because he was like kind of he was like the Wizard of Oz guy. I don't know. The Wizard of Oz guy. He was the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. Guy.
Yeah. The guy. Hey, guy.
We move on to dinner, though. And at dinner, Miles shows off his Mona Lisa. Who doesn't have a Mona Lisa?
Yeah, I do.
He shows off his Mona Lisa and he says he's bringing world leaders to see clear with a K, which is a new power source that is clean. And everything on the island is running on it, even though Lionel is nervous about it. The murder mystery starts and Benoit solves it immediately. Benoit explains he ruined the game intentionally, believing that it's dangerous to bring together so many people that want him dead. Miles says he drew up the idea for Alpha on a napkin and he showed the napkin to Andy. And that's how they became partners. Andy, I want to ask you about, I love Benoit here and how he is the smartest and most capable person on that island.
Yeah.
But he's still uncomfortably unaffiliated with everyone else there. And I just want you to talk to me about him saying, what do we win? Like an iPad?
That was so funny. Yeah, like what's in it for me? Like I'm about to solve this crime in 5 seconds. And that was so funny too, because I still was thinking that Miles Braun was some kind of genius. So once he solved the crime, I thought he was going to say something like, nope, you're actually wrong. This is what happened. And Benoit was going to look like, oh, maybe he's not the smartest detective in the world. Just Google it. He's the greatest. But then once that stupid crossbow shot him in the chest and the blood started squirting out, I was like, okay, Benoit has got this down. So yeah, he's such a great character. And Daniel Craig plays him so well because talks like he could be like maybe a doofus and he might be able to take advantage of him, but in reality he's taking everything in the whole time, where like I would probably be more like one of these doofus characters that is just kind of like, oh wow, look at this place, this is awesome, oh yeah, pool, where he's like looking at everything and looking around at his surroundings. And it's cool. I think it's really cool the way he solves the crime so quickly. He has a line that I wanted to say too that I think is the best line in the movie. It's with Kate Hudson's character is great. She's like talking about how she was like Beyonce and Harriet Tubman and where they called sweetie pants or whatever they're called.
Yeah, she's so stupid. And so
yeah, she just says what she means. And then Daniel Craig's character says something like, it's a dangerous thing to mistake speaking without thought for speaking the truth. So I thought that was great because he's basically saying, yeah, you could say what you want, but what you're saying is you're an idiot, sort of.
Right.
But even that doesn't register to her. She's kind of just like, huh?
It is actually a deeper line than that you would think would come from a movie like this. So
Mhm.
it is, because so much of the world. I mean, that's the show. I speak without thought for most of this, but that doesn't mean what I'm saying is
Same.
true. But so, but you're right. That is a great line there, and it is the whole time. Yeah, Benoit was explaining the. I think that's the beauty. You're right, of Daniel Craig's ability to act this character, because the whole time he's explaining, like, yeah, then the crossbow is going to shoot and blah blah blah. The whole time I'm thinking he's wrong and he's going to look like an idiot. But
Mhm.
Benoit's always right. He's always like, he's right every time. That his ability to be right all the time, but still make you question whether or not he's right
Yeah.
is really a skill. I always think it's very similar to a like why it's got to be hard to act Superman, because it's hard to be someone who wins every time, but then act in a way that makes the viewers question, will he win this time? But that's
Yeah.
Benoit finds a way, and Daniel Craig finds a way with Benoit to really pull that off. That to be super smart at every turn, but always make me go, "Oh, he's gonna look stupid here."
Yeah. And it's kind of like I almost feel like as an audience member, I'm a moron because I'm watching Edward Norton use big words and having a giant place, and I go, yeah, that guy, he's got his stuff together. We got to watch out for him. But it's
Yeah,
actually Daniel Craig is the one that's got it all together.
right. And it's I also think it's. I thought what I thought was this movie. This is where the movie's zagged for me a little bit when I thought it was going to zig. Is the I thought that the idea, well, the way this movie was going to play out is I thought that they were going to think it was a game, but someone was actually going to get murdered,
Yeah.
and then there was going to be the layer of what are the fake clues over the top of the real clues, and we're going to have to figure out which are which. But
Yep.
basically take the game and throw that out the window right away.
Which was great actually, because I thought the same thing. I'm like, okay, here we go. We're having a fake killing, and then Edward Norton really is gonna get killed or something like that.
Right. And I thought everyone's gonna like he's gonna be really dead, and everyone else is gonna be like,
Ha,
run it
ha.
up.
Yeah.
What a great actor,
Yeah.
Miles. Doing,
Yeah.
uh all
Yep.
that kind of stuff. But it turns out real. And I also I like the reasoning. I like how Benoit solves the case right away, but then also gives reasoning of saying, look, all these people have a reason to want you dead, and you, as his line, put a gun on the table and turn off all the lights. Like this is a dangerous
So
place for
funny.
you to be.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I thought that was just a very well crafted moment in the movie. Also, I don't know about you, but I never actually stopped, like, pause the movie. But every time they show that napkin, I was like, "What does this thing actually say?" I'm sure it's all nonsense, but
Yeah, I never
like,
looked at it either.
but like, what's the idea that's so special here? Uh,
And why not take a copy of it? Why not take a picture of it? Why not put it somewhere, put it in a safe spot like the Mona Lisa? Which, by the way, I've never seen the Mona Lisa in person, but I believe it's smaller than we think. And that painting looked huge in his
yes.
place. So I was kind of like, I wonder if that's the joke, is that it's not really the Mona Lisa. They just gave him a fake one, but
I
I don't
thought
know.
that was what was going to happen. I thought we were going to find out it wasn't the real Mona Lisa,
Yeah.
and it was all a big sham.
Yeah. Did the mouth change when he went through that thing about his its expression? I was kind of looking because they do like a zoom on the Mona Lisa's face, and I'm like, wait, is her expression changing? Like I felt like it was, but I think it was just in my brain.
I thought the Mona Lisa was going to play a much bigger part in this movie in
It did seem
general.
like it, yeah.
To be honest, I was kind of surprised at how little of a role it played in the
Hmm.
movie. I do remember, though, to his point, I didn't think she was smiling that much. I actually had to Google it. I was like, wait, does she really smile that much? Oh, she is. Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Mona
But
Lisa smile.
yeah, but um, I mean, I thought it was even less obvious. I don't know. But
Yeah,
in any case,
we're
everyone's,
we're both really into art, so
yeah, very educated, fine classical art,
yeah,
Baroque period. I don't know. Uh,
sounds
everyone's hanging
sounds
out and
right.
is talking about whether or not they're going to leave the island since the game is over, anyways. Andy finally confronts the group, saying Miles stole everything from her, but Duke says everyone is living off of Miles and Andy just couldn't hang. Miles tries to get everyone to stay on the island when Duke shows off, quote, great numbers, and says that means he should get Alpha News. To which Miles agrees. Shortly, Duke chokes to death, however. Duke's phone and gun are missing, and Benoit assumes it was a murder. Andy and Whiskey are missing as well, and the clock strikes 10 p.m. and the lights go out. Whiskey runs in, blaming Andy for everything, and as soon as Andy is found, she is shot dead.
Hmm.
This is where the movie really starts to pick up, and you start taking account of who's on this island, what are they doing. I'm going to tell you right now, this is where I said to myself, if it's the guy on the island who's just working through some things, I'm going to be a little disappointed.
The stoner guy.
Yeah. I loved his character, but I was like, man, if he's the killer, it's going to be a little obvious.
I kind of had a feeling it was going to be him for a second too, and same kind of thought. Yeah, this took, to me, this was the only thing I probably wasn't a huge fan of. It took too long to get here, I thought. I feel like we had, because what is this, like almost an hour into the movie? I feel like
it was almost 2.5 hour movie. So you know where I sit.
Yeah. So I think we could have got here quicker, but I'm glad we did. And because we knew it was going to happen, something was going to happen. And now this is the fun part for us as the audience to be like, okay, why did how did Duke get killed? Who poisoned him? And now we're off to the races of trying to figure out what happened. So here we go.
Yeah. And it was, I do agree. I think they should have got to the killing a little bit earlier and got us to the figuring stuff out. But yeah, you're right. We're here. What I liked about how this happened is you have Duke die. You immediately start trying to figure out who it is, and they immediately close in on the Andy character and immediately kill Andy, which then makes you second guess everything.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're like, wait a minute, who could it have been? Also, there was a level of, I like to call it no one is safe when certain, because you think watching this, you think Andy's safe. You think Andy and Benoit are safe. Nothing's going to happen to those two. So when Andy dies, I go, oh, shoot, no one is. It could be anybody. Who knows what's happening here? I also like how there were little theatrical things like the lights going out from the game that was supposed to be played.
That was good. Yeah. And I got to say, shout out to Batista's death scene. He goes out amazing. Like like I was impressed.
You know, I'm going to say it from an acting standpoint. David Batista may be the greatest wrestler turned actor. I mean, Rock's going to sell more tickets. You know, John Cena's probably going to have a bigger career, but I think Hogan, as far as like being different characters, like Batista can
well, I'm guessing you haven't seen No Holds Barred and Suburban Commando and the nanny.
All very different characters, brother.
But yeah, no, you're right. And wow, there's a lot of like solid careers from the wrestling world that are now actors. There's probably more than even that, right? Was The Undertaker in any movies?
He was in Suburban Commando.
He was?
It was a very small role. He was I think he was one of the guys chasing the Suburban Commando. He was one of the bad guys.
I think Shawn Michaels could have had a career, or Bret Hart. Those guys were pretty charismatic and like good-looking dudes. I'm surprised they didn't do more.
I don't think the path was quite cleared yet when they were still going, though. I don't think it was a very easy. Now I think it's easier to do, but we'll probably see a lot of wrestlers turned actors in the future, is what I'm guessing.
But and then even his death was kind of weird. Like they saw him choking, yet if I remember correctly, his girlfriend didn't see him all that concerned until he was like finally like on the ground, and Ben was like, he's dead. And then she's like, oh no. Like, I'm like, what about him choking and stuff?
I thought they didn't really do much. It didn't feel like they handled it well. Like, I thought he was choking. So I was like, how come no one's giving him the Heimlich maneuver?
Yeah.
Or like, they just kind of like watched him die. And we're like, okay.
But I guess, again, these are all dumb people. So
that's true. And I like how, by the way, before he dies, the Duke just fronts it and is like, hey, Andy, yeah, we're hanging on to Miles for his money. Mm-hmm. So you just like, don't be jealous that you couldn't hang on to the whole thing. Again, it adds a little more ideas to who could be the killer. Who did you think was the killer at this point? If you remember.
I don't know. It was hard too because they had like I was really looking at everybody's hands because it was like a black glove that was holding the gun. I honestly, I don't know. I think at this time, I think I thought it was the random guy.
Interesting. Yeah. I was I'm the worst watching these. I just like every time someone's on screen, like they're the one.
Yeah.
They're the one. They're the
Yeah.
one. They did
Yeah.
it. We go back in time a little bit. And we're told that it wasn't really Andy who was on the island. It was her sister Helen.
Ooh.
Flashing back, uh, we're told Benoit that the real Andy was murdered when she was threatened to take down Alpha. So Benoit and Helen decided to pretend that Andy is still alive. We're told how no one liked Miles at first, but he helped people to do well in their fields, so they grew to depend on him. And that Andy was the one who came up with Alpha. When the new fuel source came up, it was too dangerous, so Miles took her out of the company. She found the original napkin, proving it was her idea, and that's what was in the envelope that she emailed to everybody. So now we're again starting to see a few of the web get tangled a little bit more. We're being told now that there's a fuel source that is gonna destroy the world, but it can clean the world. Again, I rolled with it, Andy, but I felt like we are getting a little too like sci-fi for this kind of movie.
Well, I'll be honest, as soon as we did flashback, I was sort of bummed out because I'm like, oh, we just killed Duke. Let's solve this crime. And then we just went flashback, and I go, why are we doing a flashback? However, looking back, I really enjoyed this. And Janelle Monáe, this shows how great of an actor she is, because definitely played like two very different characters in these twins. And I thought they did a good job of her having that Southern accent and then her saying like, oh, she liked to use the rich bitch voice. And so it's like, okay, so that solves why her voice was different. And I really enjoyed that of her and Daniel Craig talking, because I'm like, okay, because I never got that sense. Like there was never a part of me that thought Daniel Craig's character was there because he invited himself. I literally thought he was bored and he got a box delivered to him, which we never see him open a box, right? So then you're like, oh, wow, okay. So I thought that was cool. And a little Hugh Grant cameo.
Yes.
Funny. And I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I wrote Edward Norton's hair in flashback is amazing. Do you remember his hair? I like this long hair. Edward Norton looks great, by the way. I don't know how old he is, but he looks super young.
What time period was that supposed to be when they were younger, by the way? I was trying to figure out like what year was that, because
very 90s.
I don't know what year everyone was dressed like that.
That was funny. Yeah. That flashback stuff was just funny to me. But I like that now we got another storyline to kind of deal with. Aside from, like you said, like the stuff with Clear and all that, I kind of wasn't really paying that close attention with that. I was more so like, okay, what's next? What is Benoit doing with what was the sister's name again? Helen.
I think that my takeaway as far as performances go is I think Daniel Craig is very good at what he does, but also Janelle Monáe is she can be an actor now. I mean, I know she's like, I felt like she was always musician first, but I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's time to flip that around. Maybe she's an actor now.
Yeah, and their dialogue about Clue was funny because this movie, I'm sure the first one, I said it earlier, was like Clue to me. I used to love playing Clue as a kid, and this movie kind of reminds me of it. And it's just funny how she talks about it, and he just says how he's not good at it because, what does he say? It's too dumb or something like that.
Yeah, he said it's stupid. He's bad at stupid things.
That's funny.
It's my curse. But it does also kind of explain a little bit more about maybe why there's tensions, why people didn't like Andy there, why someone may want someone killed. It also it adds a lot of those things.
And one more thing, because when I first went to the flashback, I was kind of, like I said, bummed. Like, oh man, I want to see who's the killer. I want to solve this crime. But I actually thought going back and now throwing in a different storyline, now it made me want to go back even more. Now I'm like, oh man, okay, now get me back to the murder scene. Let's do this. What happened? What went wrong? Because Helen's dead now. So let's see what, or maybe she's not dead now. So I had all these new thoughts of like, bring me back to the murder scene with all this new information. So kind of made you like want to get back to the murder scene even more now, but in a different light, like a different way to think about it.
I think from a story and a film standpoint, I enjoyed it. I'll be honest, I was a little, again, because I feel like I want to solve the crime.
Yeah.
And I feel a little bit like when you go back and you change the premise of certain things, I feel like, oh, well, I had no chance of solving the crime. There was no, you kind of cheated me a little bit.
That's true.
Like I understand you want to try to, zigzag and like maybe deceive a little bit, but it felt like a little bit like, well, there's no, you gave the characters things that I wasn't given information to. I don't know if that makes sense, but it feels like,
yeah, they could have maybe waited till later to cut that part in, like
it's
give
like
you a little Fight Club ending.
Yeah, it's like if you're playing Clue and then halfway through they go, actually, there's more rooms on the board that you didn't know about. You're like, well,
and there's a different character.
Yeah, there's different characters and weapons. Like, well, I didn't. Okay, well,
so I didn't have to be Professor Plum.
Yeah, you can. Plum. I mean, again, as I look back at the movie and like I experienced it, I'm okay with it. So that's why I'm okay with it. Like I still like it as a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
I felt a little cheated in that I want to try to solve the case myself.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
But we continue on. We're still flashing back, and Helen sees the party or the day from a different perspective than Benoit Blanc did. Like hearing things like Claire and Lionel talking about Clear and how it's not ready. Benoit and Helen check the fax machine and see that Lionel faxed everyone the email with the envelope in it after it was received, and Duke wanted Whiskey to seduce Miles to get him to put Duke on Alpha, but Miles wasn't going to do it, so Duke was angry. And Peg is mad Birdie thought sweatshops are where sweatpants were made. But Benoit believes the envelope and Andy's murder is in one of the rooms. During Duke's death, Helen does the searching and is caught by Whiskey, and that gets us to where Helen was shot. Helen lived, though, but will pretend she's dead so she can continue to search the glass onion. I want to... I just start with... I can't believe this was a brilliant filmmaking and taking something so simple and making it so stressful. And that was the little bit of, I guess, sweat that was slowly going up Helen's face towards her nose.
Oh no, that was like hot sauce.
Oh, that was the hot sauce. Oh
yeah.
Oh yeah, because she sprayed herself.
Yeah, because remember he had it by his eyes, and he's like, yeah. Oh,
so
you're just like, no.
So as that was happening, I can't believe I was so tense during that moment, Andy, because I think we all could feel it almost. I don't know about you, but I can like feel it almost running up my nose. Watch, just like,
absolutely.
Oh my God, she's in trouble.
Yeah, and luckily it happens in the nick of time. Everybody's kind of out of that area at the time. I need to take this time to mention Benoit's wardrobe during this movie. Yes. His outfits are amazing. I mean, everyone's wardrobe in this is pretty amazing. So I want to mention that, and I want to mention Jared Leto's hard kombucha. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, and Jeremy Renner's hot sauce.
That's right. Yeah.
Those were two great. Speaking of wardrobe, it happened earlier in the movie, but I like when Birdie comes up to him and is like, I love this shirt. What's the material? He's like, cotton, I think.
She was great too. I mean, everybody was so good at this movie. And, the cameos were great. I thought Jared Leto was going to make a cameo eventually. Serena Williams is in this.
That caught me off guard. That startled me a little bit. So you guys want to work out? I'm on the clock. Your money.
And I was just thinking about this because one of the other things I wanted to mention too was the fact that Miles just has a fax machine and nothing else. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, how cool of this like rich guy. And I feel like that's how we see a lot of these rich, tycoons. And it's just he's an idiot. He probably doesn't know how to work his phone. He probably doesn't know how to work technology. So he just has a fax machine.
Yeah, that's a good point because it's an interesting. It is actually though a smart way to circumvent the idea of them using cell phones and stuff to talk to each other and things like that. But
And the one other thing that I thought was not believable was that the book saved her from the bullet. That book didn't seem all that thick. How
I
small
felt
was that bullet?
I felt like also if the show's premise wasn't that they sort of leaned on these tropes, I would have been a little upset. That's a little cliche that someone
Mm,
gets shot and there's something, sitting there like a cell phone or something. There's always like something in the pocket that saves them.
yeah,
Uh, but that is kind of the point of this movie is they lean on those things. And so
yeah.
I
I
was like,
just
oh, okay, I get
just a little bit more girth of that book, maybe.
it.
It's a
Something
thin
thick.
book. Yeah.
So, uh, so but again, this is we see even more things like this is why someone like Duke didn't freak out when Whiskey was with
Hmm.
Miles because he wanted something from Miles, and we
Right.
start to we start to find out more of those things. Um, and we also find out, like, again, we get more reason why someone like Peg might want to kill Miles.
That was funny too. I know you mentioned it already, but how she's like, "Oh, please tell me you didn't think a sweatshop was this place where sweatpants are made."
Yeah, she said, it's it's like the biggest sweatshop in the world or something, and like,
Sounds
and you
great.
responded with, "Sounds great," dab emoji.
So stupid.
Whatever, it is funny. I like it. I do like I like the idea because I didn't know what a glass onion was supposed to represent, by the way. And this is just a great time to bring it up. Is I love what it means, and it's the idea that we think there's layers and layers and layers, but really it's clear as day
Hmm.
what it is, and they keep telling us that over and over again, which is kind of how the movie ends here, and that is Benoit explains that Miles is stupid and that he killed Duke and that Miles was the one that killed Andy. And it's so dumb that Benoit gets angry, especially when he realizes that Miles stole the idea to shoot
So
Andy
funny.
because the lights were off. Uh, Miles quickly burns the napkins, and our heroes realize they have nothing on Miles now. Benoit hands Helen a drink with Andy's name on it, and Helen starts breaking things. Then everyone starts breaking things, and then Helen starts breaking even more things. Helen sets the bar on fire, blows up the building with the new fuel source, including the Mona Lisa. And with Miles ruined, everyone turns on him and agrees to the story of him being the murderer. I love that. And what a commentary on our time as this comes out about the realization, Andy, that maybe sometimes billionaires aren't as smart as we think they are.
So funny. And Benoit just saying like he's an idiot. And then when he realized it, and you stole my idea. And it is
Right.
so funny how I love how Duke says too. He goes, Duke doesn't what does he say? Duke doesn't dance with pineapple.
Yeah, Duke doesn't dance. Something like he
So,
doesn't do
yeah.
that.
Yeah. So just the fact that he took that little thing, he's like, I'll put pineapple in his drink. He probably thought he was so smart to put the pineapple in the drink.
Right.
No.
But
And he's not that smart.
it was all stupid. And that was I guess the poetry of the whole thing being called Glass Onion because there's not layers to it. There's not a lot
Mhm.
of levels. There is not a lot of things to peel back. It's just right there.
He had a drink
Miles
with pineapple
stole
and gave it to
yeah,
him.
Miles stole the alpha. He stole this. He had a stupid way to kill Duke. He had a stupid way to kill Andy. He's just
Stupid way to
stupid.
talk. Yeah, even I think Benoit starts with, well, for me it starts with imbreviate. And I'm like, where's he going with this? And I'm like, he's like, imbreviate's not a word. And then later he says like circumspective. And it's
Hmm.
funny too, because again, I must be a moron because
Yeah.
I never even realized he was saying words that weren't real. I was just like, oh, okay, this guy's pretty smart.
Yeah, no, 100%. I didn't realize it either. And what's funny, and going back to what we said about Daniel Craig being able to play his character, is he started that under the premise that he was going to try to buy time for Helen to search the main office.
Hmm.
And when he did, when he started, I thought he was just buying time and rambling and trying to like. So I didn't think he was actually going to make a point. And so as he's talking, I was like, "Oh man,
Me too.
this guy's
Yeah.
just like saying stuff." but then he actually was solving the crime. And then when he brings it all together, like, oh wow, again, he got me again,
Totally.
thinking that he's an idiot, but he's actually super brilliant. He did it twice in one movie. He convinced me he was an idiot, and then made me realize he's actually smarter than everybody there.
Yeah, that second one was great too, because I agree with you. He starts off this big monologue, and I'm like, okay, yeah, he's just killing time. And then all of a sudden, once he starts that, like, for me, it's in Breathiate. I'm like, what is he talking about? And then I'm like, oh, he's
Yeah.
solving the crime.
Which, by the best part of these movies is when they go and then they go back and they start piecing together
Yeah.
all the little clues. And I love how there were so many little things that actually came back that actually mattered. That,
Hmm.
remember that time you almost pancaked me on, and
Hmm.
outside of Andy's house, and
Yeah.
those
And
things that,
Cooper. Yeah.
yeah, you forget completely, and you're like, okay, whatever. But you're like, oh yeah, he did say that. It reminded me a lot of, we actually just reviewed Tenet,
Hmm.
and that's a movie where the whole premise is based on, you see something and they go back through it in reverse, and it makes a lot of things that didn't make sense make sense. That's kind of how this felt, but in a much cleaner way. Whereas like all the stuff you
Absolutely.
saw, this is what it really was. You're like, oh,
Yeah, it
okay.
definitely was the way dumber down version of Tenet, at least explained. Because I'm like, oh, right, okay, I get it.
That'll be the headline: Glass Onion, a dumber version of Tenet. And everyone's like, what are they talking about?
The the one part I didn't really get though is like he just gave her a drink. I mean, I know he gave her the drink because he gave her that whatever that thing was for her to throw later. But why did she start smashing everything? Was it to start the fire? Is that what was
Yeah, I didn't understand smashing things. I don't know if she was doing it to
rile him up or something? Or
I think she started doing it so that it wouldn't be obvious what her plan was. Because if she
hmm,
just lit the bar on fire, people would be like, "What are you doing?" But
yeah,
if she's just like, "Hey, I'm mad, I'm breaking things," and it's like,
yeah.
"Ha ha, do what you will. I'll just buy new stuff anyways." Ha 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 ha.
I was just
But
thinking how fun that looked. Like, imagine she messed up her dialogue or something. They're like, "Cut, we gotta reset and bring all those glass things back." Because I mean, she's smashed a lot of stuff. And after Daniel Craig does his whole monologue about solving the crime, I thought it was funny how Edward Norton thought he could get away with it by just burning the napkin, but
yeah,
he burns the napkin, but Benoit does this whole monologue about solving the crime, yet all the people are still on Miles' side, which I thought was weird. I'm like, you just heard the whole story, and it wasn't
right.
until later that they're like, oh, okay, now we won't be with Miles anymore.
Well, it's because he was paying paying them.
Yeah,
So they were okay with it. Again, much like rich people, like, you're terrible, but you're keeping me wealthy. Uh,
yeah,
a few things I wanted to see play more into this. I thought the Mona Lisa's protective case was going to play a bigger role
hmm,
in this, because it's showing how little sounds would set it off, and all this stuff. So I thought that was going to be a bigger role in this, but I guess maybe that's just the red herring. I also felt like, did you really have to destroy the Mona Lisa? I mean, that's a big deal, right? Like, that's kind of a
yeah,
self-destructive thing. I mean, I know you're taking down, I guess, a big
yeah,
guy, but
yeah. I almost felt like he deserved a little bit of a different. Like she had that tape recorder the whole time. So I'm like, oh, she's just recording all of this and then she'll send it to the cops or whatever. Maybe even I kept wanting random guy to be something. I thought
yeah,
he was going to come out and be like, I'm an undercover cop and I heard everything on the recording. I thought that would have maybe been fun, but I guess we've seen that so many times. So I guess the burning was what we wanted. Kind of like Inglorious Bastards, how it ends in this like she blows up the whole theater. I
yeah,
guess that was it. This like chaos. But yeah, that was interesting too. Even while there was fire, all the doofuses were all just kind of the disruptors. Were all kind of just sitting around. They weren't like trying to get away. They were just like hanging out.
yeah. It didn't feel like they turned on him, but I didn't feel like he really got his comeuppance.
No.
It felt like he's gonna go, I lost this round, and then they're gonna do it again next year at the next retreat.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Like,
kind of what it seemed like.
shucks, you won. Anyways, uh, but I think that
Kind of
does. Yeah,
Well, I was gonna say it kind of made me frustrated to know that this moron had so much money. Like I'm like, I think I'm smarter than Miles Braun, and I don't
like
have that type of money.
like I said, I don't know when this was written or actually filmed or anything like that, but it's the timing is impeccable with especially anyone who's following, not to get too far into it, I guess, but like
Twitter.
Twitter or like and finding out that certain people like, Elon Musk may not be the person we all thought he was for a long
So
time.
weird. Yeah, I was just reading something today about that, and yeah, no, he wrote this I think in 2019, 2020, so way before any of this happened. It just so happened, but I think people are thinking that oh, he had Elon in mind, but no,
No, this
it's just like Idiocracy. You know, you write Idiocracy, and then 10 years later, it's a biography,
right.
a
It's
documentary. I mean,
terrifyingly true. Anyways, I got to get my plant some electrolytes. I'll be back. Uh, but
President Camacho.
overall, again, I feel like I nitpicked a lot of things in this during the review, but I enjoyed watching this. This was a fun movie. Like I said, I think if I watched it before Knives Out 1, I would have just gushed over this movie and said how amazing it was. But because I saw Knives Out 1 first, there was always a comparison to me.
Hmm.
And I think that is why I may sound more critical than I really feel about this movie. I really love the movie. I just kind of wish I didn't compare it to a movie that I think was one of my favorites.
Yeah, and that's a good point because I think Ryan Johnson wants them to stand out as different movies because there's going to be another one after this instead
Mm-hmm.
of them being called like Knives Out. Like even have listed just Glass Onion, and I think that's how it should be. It should be like there's Knives Out, then there's Glass Onion, and then there's going to be whatever the third one is because they are different. It's just Benoit's the same, but like the story
Right.
is all different. The characters are all different. So yeah, I agree with you because I love that first one too, and Chris Evans' sweater in it.
Oh, absolutely. The I understand why they call it Knives Out though, because they're trying to just if this was just called Glass Onion, I may not have chosen to watch it because I was
Right.
like, what's Glass Onion? But
Exactly.
if I knew it was Knives Out,
Hmm.
I go, oh, okay. And I think what it should be called is like Benoit Blanc Glass Onion,
Yeah.
like it would be Sherlock Holmes. But I honestly didn't remember his name until
Yeah.
this. So
I read this thing too that I thought was funny that Ryan Johnson was maybe going to have Benoit Blanc talk in a different accent in this one and then a different accent in the next one. Thought that would be
I
fun.
saw that too. It, that would be funny, but I also think if you only ended up making two movies, you'd say, "What terrible
What
acting!"
happened? Yeah.
Like,
Did he forget the accent?
yeah, it wouldn't have worked as well. But
And it's such
uh,
a silly accent too, especially for him because he's got such a smooth talking, English accent. I think he's so good. He's freaking James Bond, and he's this kind of southern. You think maybe a kind of a doofus, but he's like the smartest guy ever. Just a
yeah,
great role for him.
yeah, very well done, Daniel Craig. Very well done. Very well done movie. Just overall, it seemed like everyone had fun with it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Again, 94 might be a little high, but I think upper 80s is fair.
But I gotta say, talking about it and reading my notes, I actually am like, oh yeah, I think I really did like I want to go back and watch it again now, which I guess is a
Yeah,
good thing.
right. If it wasn't 2.5 hours,
I
still feel
want to
like
watch the part from right when we get to the I guess the second act or something.
right. So this is the part where we see if you can Kevin Bacon this bad boy.
Do you know where I'm gonna go? If you know what movie I've always used, that's what I'm going with. I feel like you can get
Yeah,
this one.
you're going through sleepers,
Hmm. We're gonna
uh,
get there.
and I feel like there is a
Think of Miles. Who plays Miles?
oh yeah, Fight Club.
Yep.
Okay,
Edward Norton,
that
Brad
was too
Pitt.
easy. For some reason, I was like, Batista and Brad Pitt have been in a movie together. I was like,
Ah.
Batista and Robert De Niro have been in a movie together, haven't they?
I would 100% see that movie.
um, but Wham bam. That was fun. This is the end of the year, Andy. Thank you so much for doing a season 2 with me.
Yeah. What a great year. I was going to say, we've had, thanks to all of our guests.
Yeah, all the guests, incredible guests this year. I can't believe we suckered them into doing this.
Yeah, that they said yes, and that they, I think, enjoyed their time with us.
Yeah, I think we're going to get some to come back, maybe some new ones next time, maybe some, I don't want to promise anything, but maybe some upgrades to season 3. We'll have to see, but everyone, again, please do me a favor, like, comment, share, subscribe. It really does help. I want to shout out Craig Robinson for leaving us a couple of reviews and comments on YouTube. Always appreciated. Thank you so much for the kind words. Andy, where can the world find you online in the meantime?
Oh, yeah, you can find me at Just Andy Rossi.
You can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. Andy, that does it for us this year. Any final words?
See you next year.